Okay, so let's get started with the paperwork. It's the part that everybody can get frustrated with. It's not the very fun part. But let's go over basically the paperwork flow or what happens in a rental. What you've already done was signed a reservation agreement, which is a mini contract, and paid a $500 reservation fee, which gave you a booking. Then at this point, we're at the point where you're going to take delivery of the boat, and we'll go over all the paperwork. And at that point, when we're done with paperwork, we do a reservation fee, or not a reservation fee, but we take care of the money. And that is done by pre-auth. We do a pre-auth for the rental and a pre-auth for the security deposit, which we'll talk about in a minute. When you're done with the rental and you bring back the boat, the first thing we do is take a round of pictures of the boat. And then we do a quick assessment of the boat, and then we test the boat. And then we try to find out if it came back in the same condition. We do that with every boat. They're always tested going in and tested going out. That way we know you have a boat that's in good working order. Okay, with every rental, there is a number of pieces of paperwork that is part of every rental. You've already signed the reservation agreement. The next piece of paper that you signed the day of the rental is the actual contract, which would look like this. Part of the contract is going to be a security deposit invoice. This allows us to actually use that invoice if we ever need to. You need to give us your permission in order to do that, and that's what that invoice is about. We also go over a boat rental checklist. That would be basic things that you need to know that are important for you on every boat. Every boat has an inboard and an outbound sheet that'll show you condition of the boat. We do these and keep these in-house so that we have a physical record as well as the pictures that are the backup. And that becomes something that will help you and also us. A lot of times a client has had issues with the boat. We thought that they damaged something, and because we had good records written and also all of our pictures, we were able to prove that it actually wasn't them. So it actually can benefit you as well as us. At the end of every rental, when we go do a test run on the boat, we fill out a whole sheet based upon everything we found on the boat and making sure everything works properly. Okay, going over the contract, we won't go over every portion of the contract, but we will go over portions of the contract that are important for you to know. The first page is basically self-explanatory. It's just what we agreed upon as far as the terms of the contract. The second part talks about the money flow. And the money flow is it can be a very sensitive issue. When we deal with security deposits and whether we keep the security deposit or give it back, those are really sensitive. So we take it very seriously. And so we always spend a lot of time explaining how the security deposit works. Like with the rental, we do a pre-auth, which means that we've reserved the money at the bank. We do that for the rental, and we do it for the security deposit. So there are two pre-auths. That means that we've reserved the right to the money. At the end of the rental, hopefully what happens is the only thing we have to do is settle on the rental part. If there is damage or something that comes out of the security deposit, then that would normally become hard. We have to find out what the variables are, and then we will come out with the exact cost of whatever it is, and then refund whatever the difference is. So the way that security deposit works again is it's a pre-authorization, so we're reserving the right to use the money. If the boat comes back and everything's fine, that just goes away. and the only thing that's collected on is the rental. However, if the boat comes back and there's damage or incidentals that have to be dealt with, we find out what those are, and sometimes that takes time. In the contract, it says that we reserve the right up to 30 days to be able to do that, in case finding that information takes time. Normally, it can happen very quickly, and we can have the answers within a day or two. Usually, it doesn't take longer than a week. Then when we find out what they are, then if that security deposit, if there's a lot that has to be refunded, we refund it at that point. There's always a little bit of confusion using these security deposits, and we want to make sure that everybody's clear on how they work and when we use them. It's not uncommon when we make it hard that somebody says, well, why did you take my security deposit? Well, it's because there was damage and you've already given us the right to do that. If you have further questions about that, that would be a good one to call about, because we want to make sure everybody understands how those work. Cancellation, we rarely have that problem, but in the contract, you lose your reservation fee if you cancel at any point. The reservation fee is non-refundable. However, there are times when people give us 30 days or more or whatever that we choose to give those back. Normally we do. If it's with less than a week, we rarely give those back because we normally can't find somebody to slip into your slot. So we can lose a whole rental because of that. In regards to payment, the main thing you need to know about that is we have your credit card on file. The main thing I want you to know about that is this credit card that we use for this boat rental is only for this transaction. We do not use it for anything else. If you call and want to rent a boat next year, we'll again ask you for a new card because we do not use the card that we have on file. Those are crossed out at the end of the season, and those are only used again for that transaction. When you pick up a boat, the boats should be full. Our process is part of gassing up each unit when it comes in and out after the test run. However, if you get a boat that isn't full, we'll have you top it off before you use it, and then we can reimburse for that. In most cases, the boat should always be full, and you send them back full. If you don't bring it back to us full, because we top them off at the end, then we'll just charge it to the card on file. In regards to inspections of the boats, every boat, like I said before, is inspected in and out of a rental. So before you take a boat, it's gone through an inspection process. It's been on the water. It's been ran. We go through all the processes. We actually have our guys use the boat. They go out and actually surf or wakeboard or something, so they actually know that everything's working on the boat. If you get a boat and there's issues, then we'll talk about that in a minute. But just know this, they are inspected in, and they're inspected when they come back. When you bring the boat back, your boat is not signed off on until it's been ran on the water. So again, boats are inspected in and out. When it comes to issues and repairs on a boat, if you get a boat and you find that there's issues with a boat that you can't figure out, we have a system, a texting system where you can try to get a hold of somebody fairly quickly. On the water, sometimes it's hard to get out with a phone call, especially at Lake Powell when you get deep in some of those canyons. Sometimes it's hard to get a regular phone call out. So if you text, we have a system of texting where you can text a brief message to us and we try to interact with you the best we can. We always have you text SOS, your name, and a brief message. It can be very small. The message can be as much as ballast system's not working, overheating, need info. The very first thing you need to tell us is that if you put an SOS there, it's our message that you're on the water. But what you need to make sure we know right after that is that you're okay, that everyone on board is okay. Otherwise, we'll be calling rangers and whatever to try to get you some help. Can we always fix every little problem that you have out there? Not always. Boats are mechanical items. We send them out. They should be in good working order, but there's things that can happen. We try the best we can to help you even on the water, even if we can't be there. But a lot of times we can text you back and forth, eventually get a phone call, and sometimes we can walk you through the issues. 9 times out of 10, we can solve an issue in that manner. Some issues can't be solved, and then we have to figure out what your options are at that point. In your boat, if there's theft or loss out of the boat, things that are owned by TK Watersports, you're responsible for those. Anything you lose that's yours on the boat, let's say you dock somewhere and you go into one of the shops and somebody steals something out of your boat. You're responsible for your items and for TK Watersports items. Just remember that. So if you don't want anything taken from the boat, make sure you take it with you. In the contract, it says that you're responsible for everyone who drives the boat, meaning in our contract, they have to be 25 years of age or older. The reason for that isn't that they couldn't be good at driving the boat, as much as it is our insurance will not cover anyone that's under 25 on a rental boat. So every one of your drivers have to be 25 or older. Why we're talking about insurance, the main thing that you can have as many drivers as you want. Here's the important thing about insurance. Insurance looks at you as a rental and they peg you really quick. Are they responsible or not? If you have a couple of drivers, and they usually give it up to 3, they see you as a responsible renter. If you have 6 drivers, they see you as an irresponsible rental. And if there's ever any problem with the boat, they will look at the whole situation with a fine-tooth comb. So my recommendation is that you come up with a few good drivers and we'll put their names as part of the contract. I don't recommend more than 3. If you have more than 3, we need to have everyone that drives the boat, their name has to be on the contract, or our insurance doesn't cover them. When you're boating in any water in any state, you are responsible for the conditions of the water and the weather. You need to make sure you know what you're getting into when you get on the water. At Lake Powell, the weather can change so quickly that you can get yourself in a bind really quick. You're responsible for boating in safe conditions. The one thing that TK Watersports doesn't do is we don't refund for gifts, for acts of God, meaning if you're out there and it decides it's going to be rainy, we don't refund for that. Or if you go out there and it decided to be hotter than you want it to be. Believe it or not, we've had somebody upset because it was too hot at Lake Powell. We don't refund for those things. When you return any of the boats, there's a return date, and there's usually a time. And if you go over that time, TK Watersports can charge for time that you're late. We, generally speaking, try not to do this if we don't have to. But if our transport guy or our guys have to wait for a half a day for you to show up when you're supposed to show up at a certain time, we can charge for that. And you'll have to look at the contract for your individual boat and what the charges would be on it. There are 2 pages. You see that there and that there is all liability clauses, meaning you are going out on a boat. Boating can be dangerous. You're doing water sports. Water sports can be dangerous. You take full responsibility for the activities that you choose to do on the boat. And that 1.5 pages pretty much says that. It says it's your fault, not ours. Excuse me, for playing on the water. There is a clause in here that talks about unsafe operation of the boat. Some of these would include like jumping people's wake, like you're driving behind another boat and you try to jump the boat off of a wake, whether it doesn't matter what kind of machinery it is, that's considered unsafe. Safe, it doesn't mean driving slow necessarily. It means driving in safe conditions and being sober. That's one of the big things. Let's talk about cleanliness in the boat. I'm going to talk about this probably a couple of times through our time together because there's always some frustration as to what we expect with the boats being cleaned. If the boat comes back and it's dirty, we can charge up to $15 a foot, and that can be kind of hefty in a 23-foot boat. That's over $300, and so you want to make sure it's clean. Here's how we gauge a boat being clean. If a boat comes back and our guys have to spend 30 minutes on a boat, it's clean, because your clean and our clean could be a little different. So we have a way to gauge that, and if it comes back and I know our guys have 30 minutes of work, we consider the boat clean. The one problem that we have is sand in the boat. If a boat comes back and there's sand in the boat, we automatically charge the $15 a foot because it takes forever to get sand out of a boat. Some little tips about that is when you have groups of people coming in and out of the boat, never let them put shoes on in the boat. Have them take the shoes out, rinse them off, and you can pile them in the boat. When you're ready to leave the boat, of course, you put your shoes on. By doing that, you leave all the sand out of the boat, and at the end of your rental, your cleaning will be minimal. I've been to Lake Powell on a houseboat vacation, been there for a week, and came back and had very little to clean in the boat because we did those things. We made sure everybody was clean when they came in the boat. If they were on the beach, they would jump in the water and clean off, and no shoes in the boats. And that'll save you a ton of trouble at the end.